I moved into the bungalow last year. The rent was cheap, and I needed a quiet place to focus. My firm had shut down, and I was desperate for surveillance jobs. The neighborhood was forgotten, perfect for staying out of sight. I didn't think too much about it then. I wish I had. First, everything felt normal. I set up my equipment and started a small gig for a client. One night, while reviewing footage, I heard whispers. They were soft and seemed to drift just beyond my reach. I wasn't sure if I imagined them. The lights flickered, and a chill ran through me. I felt uneasy and got up to check around the empty house. Shadows danced on the walls. As days passed, things got strange. My camera recorded dark shapes shifting in the corners. I thought maybe it was the light playing tricks on me, but then I found symbols carved into my porch. They looked ancient, like nothing I'd ever seen. The air felt heavy, as if someone was watching me, but I never saw a soul. It made my skin crawl. I decided to talk to some neighbors to get a better sense of the area. When I approached Mrs. Wilkins, she looked nervous. I asked about the neighborhood's history, and she just shook her head. "Some things are best left alone," she said in a hushed tone. That made my stomach twist. What could she know? That same night, as I reviewed my recordings again, I froze. There was a figure just outside my house, shrouded in darkness. I could barely see it, but something about it sent a jolt of fear through me. I couldn't make out any features, but I felt its gaze bore into me. I jotted that down, feeling foolish for getting scared over a shadow. The next morning, I woke up to find my door slightly open. I was sure I had locked it. Maybe I forgot. But as the days went by, I felt more and more uneasy. The neighbors started to act oddly. They would whisper when I passed, and their eyes darted away, avoiding mine. I started to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. One evening, standing on my porch, I heard the whispers again. This time they were clearer. "Help us," they called out. I turned to find the source, but no one was there. My heart raced. It felt like I stumbled into something much larger than myself. I thought I could uncover the secrets here, but now I felt trapped. The whispers grew louder each night. They were like a lure, pulling me deeper into the mystery of this place. I often wondered about the symbols. I wondered if they were warnings. And one question nagged at me: what happened here? I realized I might have made a terrible mistake coming here. This neighborhood held something dark, something that didn't want to be discovered. I felt in over my head. I didn't know how to escape it, and the feelings of being watched never left. As I lay in bed at night, that whisper lingered in my ear, a chant I couldn't ignore. I could feel it building. I just hoped I wouldn't be too late to understand what I had unearthed. The following day, I decided to keep digging. I couldn't shake the feeling that Mrs. Wilkins knew more than she let on. I headed over to her house again, determined to coax some information out of her. She was outside tending to her garden, surrounded by wilted flowers that matched the somber atmosphere in the neighborhood. "Mrs. Wilkins?" I called. She looked up and hesitated before putting down her shears. Her eyes darted to the ground, and for a moment, a shadow crossed her face. "I was hoping to talk to you about the history of this area," I began, trying to sound casual. She sighed, brushing her hands on her apron. "You really shouldn't dig too deep, she warned. Her voice was low and urgent. "Things aren't what they seem." I pressed her. "What do you mean? What happened here?" Her expression shifted. "Once, long ago, this was a thriving place. People lived in harmony. But then something changed. Blood was spilled. Spirits became restless. We've all learned to keep our heads down." "Spirits?" I echoed, my skepticism fighting with an unsettling sense of anticipation. She glanced over her shoulder as if expecting to see someone. "There are truths you want to face. Just leave it be, for your own good." I left her with more questions than answers. The heaviness of her words settled like a weight in my chest. I needed to know what had happened. I couldn't afford to be scared anymore. I felt like I was being pulled into something much larger than I'd anticipated. That night, I reviewed my footage, desperate to gather more clues. I froze when I noticed something unusual. A figure moved quickly across the frame. It wasn't there for long, just a blur, but I'd seen it. The figure was different from before, more distinct. My heart pounded as I enhanced the images. It looked like a woman in a long, dark dress. Her face obscured but her posture twisted in an unnatural way. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. That S when I saw it. A symbol flickered on the edge of the frame, just as the woman crossed through. It was one of the symbols I'd found on my porch. Panic gripped me. I needed to find the source of the symbols. I grabbed my notebook and rushed outside, the cold air biting at my skin. I thought maybe there would be more near the trees at the edge of my yard, where darkness loomed thick and heavy. As I approached the trees, the whispers returned stronger and more insistent now. Find us. It was no longer a plea. It felt like a command. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to turn back, but curiosity pushed me forward. Then everything went dark. A rush of cold air swept through the branches, and the whispers turned into muffled screams. I stumbled back, heart racing. Whatever lay ahead, it felt desperate and dangerous. I couldn't escape this, not without knowing the truth. But I had no idea how deep I was about to plunge into darkness. When I regained my footing, the darkness felt denser, wrapping around me like a thick blanket. The whispers faded to a low hum, but I could still feel their urgency. Find us. The words echoed inside my mind, pulling me deeper into the shadows. I wanted to run, but the curiosity that drove me earlier held me in place. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was the only light source I had left. I fumbled to pull it out, my fingers trembling. The glow illuminated the trees, casting eerie shadows that twisted and danced. That S when I noticed something on the ground. A patch of dirt looked freshly disturbed, the earth around it dark and soft as if someone or something had been buried there. With my heart racing, I knelt down to examine it more closely. My fingers sank into the cool soil as I brushed it aside, revealing a small, weathered box. It was locked, but the surface was covered in those same strange symbols. My breath caught in my throat. This had to be important. I had to open it. I pulled at the lid, but it wouldn't budge. Frustration tightened my chest. I needed a tool, something to force it open. I stood up to head back inside for a screwdriver, but a rustle nearby made me freeze. Who's there? I called out, my voice shaky. Silence answered back, heavy and thick. I peered into the darkness, straining to see, but there was only an unsettling stillness. I'm not afraid of you, I lied, half hoping it was the bravado I needed. Then I heard it again, a soft whisper, almost like a breath. Help us. My heart raced again. But this time, fear twisted into something else. I couldn't abandon the connection I felt. I walked further into the trees, moving toward the voice. With each step, the sensation of being watched intensified. Suddenly, I tripped over a root and fell hard onto the ground. The box slipped from my grip and flew open, and in an instant, everything around me changed. A bright flash illuminated the clearing. I gasped as figures emerged from the shadows. The same woman from the footage stood before me, her dark dress flowing around her. Her face was still obscured, but her presence was undeniable. Help us, she repeated, her voice cracking like the sound of breaking glass. She extended a hand toward me, but before I could react, the whole scene flickered like a broken screen, and she vanished. I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding. The box lay open, revealing an old, tattered journal inside. I picked it up, sensing it was important. The pages were filled with strange writings, illustrations of the symbols, and names. One name stood out. Eliza. I felt a chill run through me. The whispers returned, louder this time. Find Eliza. I knew I had to dig deeper, but the weight of the darkness pressed against me. Someone or something didn't want me here. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see those twisted figures again. In that moment, I realized I was no longer just a bystander. I was part of whatever story was waiting to unfold, and there was no turning back. My next steps would shape what came next, but I had to know, who was Eliza and what happened to her? Just as I turned to leave, a cold wind surged through the clearing, slamming the journal shut. I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. Someone was watching, hidden in the shadows. And they were not alone. I took a deep breath, gripping the journal tightly. I could still feel the echo of the woman's voice in my bones. Eliza could mean something, anything. The wind howled again, sending a fresh wave of chill down my spine. I had to get out of there, but the weight of curiosity made me hesitate. I looked back at the journal. What if it held the answers I needed? Casting another glance toward the shadows, I stepped back, retracing my steps toward the door. The hairs on my neck stood on end. If someone was out there, I couldn't risk being caught off guard. I reached for my phone, turning on the flashlight. The beams sliced through the darkness, illuminating the trees. That's when I saw it, a figure darting between the trunks. Panic rushed through me, and I stumbled back, nearly losing my balance again. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. The figure stopped short, partially hidden by the branches, but I could see the outline of a woman. My heart dropped. It was her, the one from the video. I blinked rapidly, willing my mind to adjust to the sight. But instead of approaching, she stepped deeper into the shadows. "Help us," she called. The sense of urgency in her voice wrapped around me, drawing me in, yet filling me with dread. "Wait, stop." I moved toward her, but she retreated again. I was torn between following her and staying safe. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she held the key to everything. The whispers resumed, this time mingling with a new sound, soft sobbing. My heart thundered. I glanced back at the journal, now nestled securely in my arms. I remembered Eliza's name. What if this woman was tied to her? "Please," I called out, stepping forward into the darkness. "Who are you? What do you need from me?" The figure paused, the sobbing stopped, and I felt the weight of her gaze. "You must find the truth. It's all connected, Eliza and the others." I felt a rush of desperation. "Others?" She nodded slowly, her face still obscured. "They can't move on until you understand. But they're angry." A shiver crawled down my spine. "Angry at what? What do I need to do?" Suddenly, the air around me turned colder, and I felt the atmosphere shift. I stepped back, heart racing as shadows gathered more tightly around me, seeming to pulse with life. The woman turned and ran, disappearing into the trees. Adrenaline surged through me. I had to follow. Racing after her, I broke through the underbrush, nearly tripping over roots and branches. But as I ran, the whispers grew chaotic, turning into overlapping voices. "Find Eliza! Help us! Get out!" Then, just as suddenly as they had started, they fell silent. I stood frozen, the clearing quiet once more. Called out, "Where are you?" But my voice echoed back without answer. I took a cautious step forward, and that's when I noticed the residue on my hands from the journal. It felt alive, thrumming with the hints of what it had witnessed. I needed to understand. I needed to go back to the base and dig deeper before something worse found me here. Turning, I sprinted toward the edge of the woods, the darkness seeming to stretch and pull with every step. I was close to the truth, but what I found would change everything. The next morning, my mind raced with thoughts of Eliza and the woman from the night before. I sat at my table, the journal spread open in front of me, inked pages staring back as if daring me to uncover their secrets. I felt a cold knot in my stomach at the idea that I'd been drawn into something far bigger than I understood. I needed a plan, so I made a list of names I could follow up on. Eliza was first. The woman had warned me about others, but I didn't know who they were. I slid the journal closer, scanning its pages. Each entry felt like a puzzle piece waiting to snap into place. With a deep breath, I grabbed my phone and started searching for anything on Eliza. I found a few records. A missing person report from a small town nearby. That was a lead. Felt thin, but it had potential. Before I could dwell on it, the low hum of my phone vibrated. A notification. I glanced at the screen. A message came in from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have gone into the woods." My heart sank as I recognized the number was from a blocked caller ID received multiple times before. I felt a rush of unease. Who was watching me? I wanted to brush this off, but the fear settled heavily in my chest. I needed to leave now. I packed the journal and my phone into my bag and stepped outside. The sun shone brightly, but it did little to ease the chill of my thoughts. My car sat where I'd parked it, the familiar sight offering little comfort. As I drove, I replayed the woman's last words in my mind. They're angry. What did they want from me? The questions swirled like a torrential storm threatening to capsize my sanity. Arriving at the town hall, I quickly checked in with the clerk and requested information about Eliza. She directed me to a cramped office at the back, where a tired-looking officer sat behind a desk piled high with papers. "Can I help you?" he asked, glancing up with a weary expression. "I'm looking into a missing person case, Eliza Hartwell." I tried to keep my tone steady, but it quivered slightly. The officer raised an eyebrow. "That one has been cold for a while. Her parents filed the report, but we haven't found anything." A pit grew in my stomach. "What do you know about her disappearance?" He leaned back, crossing his arms. "Not much. Just that she was last seen near the old mill on the outskirts of town. Some locals claim to see someone there with her. But you know how stories go around here. The old mill. I'd seen that place on maps, a desolate stretch of land." My gut twisted at the thought. Were there any leads or sightings after that? None that panned out. Just rumors. She and a few others might have gone camping out there. Friends said nothing unusual happened. I scratched my chin, absorbing his words. Something about the old mill felt like a breadcrumb leading deeper into this tangled mess. Anger flared in me as I thought of the woman, sobbing, pleading for help. Suddenly, the officer's phone buzzed and he answered. "Yeah. Wait, what?" My heart raced as he listened intently. "Got it. We'll be there," he said, hanging up abruptly. He looked at me, his face pale. "You need to stay away from the woods. Something happened at the mill." I felt the draw of urgency. "What happened?" He hesitated. "You've got to trust me," but I was already moving. I bolted toward the door, my heart hammering. Whatever had occurred there wasn't just an incident. It felt like a warning. I had to get there quickly. Something was waiting for me, and I could sense it. I turned the car toward the mill, dread pooling in my gut. As I drove, the wind picked up again, and the shadows of the trees felt closer than ever. The closer I got, the more certain I became. The truth was waiting for me, and it didn't care if I was ready for it. My hands trembled on the steering wheel as I approached the old mill. It loomed in the distance, surrounded by tangled trees and a sky darkening with gray clouds. The scene was all too eerily quiet, as if the very world was holding its breath. I parked on the side of the gravel road and took a moment to collect myself. The mill had a foreboding look. Its weathered wooden exterior bore scars of time and neglect. I could feel the weight of dread creeping back in, but I knew I had to move forward. I stepped out of the car and inhaled deeply, the scent of damp earth mixing with the chill of the wind. As I crept closer to the building, I noticed something glinting near the entrance, a shard of glass or metal. With every step, the thumping of my heart echoed in my ears. I didn't want to be here, but I felt an unshakable pull. I knelt to inspect the object, brushing away the dirt to reveal a small piece of a shattered phone. It looked like it belonged to a woman. A shiver ran down my spine. As I picked it up, the sounds of rustling leaves caught my attention. I froze, the hair on the back of my neck standing straight. I wasn't alone. I turned slowly, scanning the area. "Hello?" My voice came out shaky, barely above a whisper. There was no reply, just the distant sound of water trickling through the brush. I took a few cautious steps backward, and when I saw a figure peeking from behind the trees. "Who's there?" I called out, my pulse quickening. The figure stepped forward, and I recognized the face. It was Eliza, or at least her likeness. But it was impossible she'd been missing. The woman from the woods had warned me about her. This wasn't right. "Help me," she said, her voice hollow and far away. She raised a hand as if pleading, but something about her felt off, like an illusion. I stumbled back, bumping into the old mill's entrance. "Are you real?" I shouted, panic clawing at my throat. "What happened to you?" Then, just as quickly as she appeared, She fell silent and melted back into the shadows, vanishing without a trace. I was left standing there, trembling. How could I trust what I saw? I needed answers. I had the peace of the phone and the gnawing fear that the encounters were growing more dangerous. Whatever was happening here was escalating, and I wasn't prepared for what might come next. Taking a deep breath, I focused on the shard in my hand. Maybe it could lead to the truth about Eliza, or worse, about those who were angry. I turned to head back to my car, but then I heard a whispering voice, low and urgent, cutting through the still air. "Come back, you need to know." I froze, my heart pounding. The voice was coming from inside the mill. I had a choice: run or face whatever was lurking within. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but curiosity and fear intertwined, holding me in place. The truth beckoned me. I needed to know what was waiting inside. Gathering my resolve, I took a step forward toward the entrance of the mill. The air felt charged, alive with hidden layers and intensities, ready to be uncovered. I took a shaky breath as I crossed the threshold of the mill. The air inside was stale, like time had forgotten this place. Dust motes danced in the narrow beams of light filtering through cracked windows. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but the whisper still echoed in my mind. "Come back, you need to know." With each step deeper into the mill, the unease grew heavier. I clutched the shard of glass tighter, a thin shield against the unknown. I scanned the dimly lit interior. Old machinery lay scattered, rusted and lifeless. The walls were adorned with peeling paint, remnants of forgotten stories. Then, I heard it again, a faint cry, barely audible, like a plea for help. It was coming from the back of the mill. My heart raced as I began to move towards the sound, each footstep stirring the silence. Was it Eliza? Was someone else trapped in here? I hesitated at the doorway leading to what looked like an old storage area. The urge to turn back was overwhelming, but I couldn't ignore the desperation in that voice. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The room was darker, the air thicker. My eyes adjusted to the gloom. Shadows clung to every corner. That S when I saw it, a flicker of movement in the back. I strained to see. It was a figure crouched low. "Hello?" I called, more confident than I felt. The figure turned slowly, and I feared it might be another apparition. But as it stepped forward, I realized it was a woman. Her clothes were torn, and dirt smudged her face. "Eliza!" I gasped. She looked at me, but her eyes were dull, like two empty pools. "Help me," she repeated, her voice shaky. No, it can't be you. What happened?" I asked desperately, stepping closer despite the alarm bells ringing in my head. "I don't have time. You need to find the truth. They won't let you leave until you do," she said, glancing over her shoulder, fear etched on her face. "What do you mean?" I pressed, but she didn't respond. Instead, her expression turned to one of terror. "Run!" she screamed, her voice cracking as she staggered back into the shadows. Before I could react, something cold gripped my arm. I spun around to find myself face to face with a man, a tall figure, shrouded in darkness. His eyes glinted with malice. "You shouldn't have come here," he hissed, pulling me back toward the door. Fear surged through me. I jerked free and raced past him, the urge to survive overpowering everything else. I sprinted toward the exit, the mill seeming to close in around me. I pushed open the door, stumbling into the blinding light outside, gasping for air. But I didn't stop running. I didn't even look back. I needed to get to my car, to safety. The woods felt alive again, but this time, I was more terrified of what lay behind me than what was lurking in the trees. As I reached my car, I yanked the door open and jumped inside, fumbled for the key, and started the engine. I tore down the gravel road, heart racing. Then everything went dark. The engine sputtered and died. Panic ignited in my chest as I slammed my hands on the steering wheel. Had they followed me? And that S when I realized the phone shard. I had left it behind. I pounded the steering wheel in frustration, still reeling from what just happened. The silence inside the car felt deafening, but the last memory of Eliza's terrified face haunted me. When I tried the ignition again, nothing happened. A chill ran through me, I jumped out of the car, scanning the woods around me, willing to sprint for help if I had to. I made a quick decision and decided to head back to the mill. I had to retrieve the shard. It might be my only chance to understand what was happening. With each step back through the forest, I heard every rustle and snap of a twig. Shadows shifted between the trees. The feeling of being watched crept over me. I clutched the remaining shards of my composure, reminding myself that I'd already faced darkness once tonight. When I returned to the mill, the familiar chill settled in my bones. I felt like an intruder in a forgotten graveyard. I pushed the heavy door open, the hinges squealing like a tortured animal. I stepped inside, and the musty smell assaulted my senses. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, trusting the echo to drown out my fears. I had to move quickly. I couldn't linger in this eerie silence any longer. I picked my way through the darkened space. My heart thudded in my chest as I retraced my steps towards the storage area. The shadows seemed to stretch and curl, alive in a way that made my skin prickle. As I neared the doorway, something caught my eye near the floor. It was the phone shard, glinting in the dim light. Reaching down to grab it, I felt a rush of relief. Maybe it held some clues or even a connection to Eliza. But as soon as I wrapped my fingers around it, a loud crash echoed from behind me. I spun around, instinct kicking in. The tall figure I had encountered earlier stood there, blocking the exit. Rage and fear twisted his features into something monstrous. "I told you not to come back," he growled in a low voice that reverberated through the empty room. Adrenaline surged, and I clutched the shard like a lifeline. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my voice echoing against the rusted machinery. He stepped closer, and I instinctively backed up, hitting the wall behind me. "The truth doesn't want to be found. Leave now and forget what you saw." In that instant, I could see the pain behind his anger. But the urgency of Eliza's warning rang in my ears. I couldn't let fear dictate my next move. "No, I want leave until I know what happened to her." I felt the tremor in my own voice. The man's glare intensified, but then his expression shifted. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. "You really don't understand the danger you're in." Before I could respond, the terrifying weight of the atmosphere shifted again. The lights flickered overhead, and the shadows seemed to swell around us. My gut lurched. "Run!" Eliza's voice echoed in my mind, and I didn't hesitate. I darted around him, bolting for the door with the shard clutched tightly in my hand. I burst outside, only to find the woods shrouded in darkness. But I didn't stop. I had to put distance between us. I could feel the weight of his presence close behind, each step reverberating in my chest. I plunged into the trees, disoriented but driven by a desperate need to survive. But then, a chilling realization struck me: running wasn't enough. I had to find the truth, or I'd never be free of this nightmare. I sprinted deeper into the woods, the darkness swallowing me whole. Trees twisted around me like skeletal fingers, and every noise felt amplified. Branches snapped underfoot, and my breath came in ragged gasps. Behind me, the man's footsteps grew louder, a relentless echo of my own terror. I stumbled into a small clearing, momentarily disoriented, and my thoughts raced. I had the shard. My focus shifted from running to what I could do with it. With a shaky hand, I pulled it from my pocket and examined it in the faint moonlight. It was jagged, not just a piece of glass but something charged with purpose. A flicker of color erupted within the shard, illuminating the darkness around me. A holographic image, or maybe a memory, began to form. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. It was Eliza, her voice echoing softly, "You have to trust me. Follow the light." Panic surged as the sound of branches snapping grew closer. I pushed myself to concentrate, trying to pull more clarity from the shard. "Eliza!" I shouted, desperation fueling my voice. "What do I do?" The image shifted, showing a small cottage deep in the woods, details sparking with familiarity. I recalled passing it on my way to the mill. Before I could think, I felt the warm glow of light from the shard fading. I had to act fast. I turned and bolted in the direction the memory had shown me, the cottage as my focal point. Every ounce of fear became a driving force. I pushed through the undergrowth, branches scraping against my arms. The night symphony of the forest shifted. It was quieter now, a silence that felt ominous. Then I heard it. A woman's voice drifting through the trees. "Help please, Eliza." It was her. My heart surged with newfound urgency. I followed the voice, my feet pounding the uneven ground, and after what felt like an eternity, I broke from the trees. There it was. The cottage, a beacon in the night, with light spilling from the windows. I hesitated, the chill of doubt creeping in. What if it was a trap? But the thought of Eliza's voice was enough to ignore that fear. I dashed to the door, my fist raised to pound it open when a sudden loud crash made me jump back. The tall figure stumbled out from behind the cottage, his face twisted in fury. My breath caught. The man had found me. "You shouldn't have come here," he roared, and I froze in fear. "Leave her alone," I shouted back, but my voice wavered. He stepped forward, a predator closing in on its prey. In that moment, the shard flared to life in my hand. A streak of light blazed between us, momentarily revealing the cottage's interior, a glimpse of Eliza bound to a chair, fear reflecting in her eyes. I couldn't waste any more time. Jettisoning caution, I lunged toward the door. As I flung it open, I shouted, "Eliza!" But then the light from the shard sputtered, and suddenly everything went dark. "Damn it!" I cursed, panicked. I had to find her. I fumbled inside the doorway, adrenaline surging. Someone had to be in here, and I was about to face the answers I had sought. But as I peered deeper into the void, I felt a presence behind me, and a cold hand clasped down hard on my shoulder. I spun around, heart in my throat, and came face to face with the looming figure of the man. His eyes glinted with a savage intensity, and I felt more cornered than ever. The cottage was dim. Every shadow lurking in the corners seemed to pulse with threat. "You think you can save her?" he hissed, his breath hot against my face. Panic surged through me. I pushed past him, frantic. "Let her go." The boldness of my words felt like a lifeline, but deep down I trembled. As I entered the cottage, the interior revealed itself in flickering shades of gray. Eliza was there, bound and shaken, her eyes wide with fear. "Please, you have to help me." The man followed closely, a dark shadow hovering just behind. Desperately, I focused on the shard in my hand, praying it would once again ignite with that otherworldly light. "Stay back," I shouted, raising it like a weapon. But nothing happened. The air grew still, thick with unspoken tension. "You should have listened," the man sneered, stepping closer. I glanced back at Eliza, realizing I had to act fast. "Give me a minute," she pleaded, her voice trembling. I nodded quickly, trying to buy us time. I needed to break whatever hold he had over this place and find a way to free Eliza. In a surge of instinct, I closed my eyes and focused on the memories, on the connection I felt with Eliza. The shard pulsed softly in my grip, almost like it was alive. Then, the whispers returned, strong and relentless, echoing through the room. "Help us find Eliza." Before I could dwell on how that would help, I directed my attention toward the dark man. Something told me he was part of the twisted fabric of this reality, the anger, pain, and secrets clinging to him like a second skin. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice wavering but assertive. "What do you want?" He smirked, the shadows twisting around his frame. "You don't understand. We can't let the light in. We're bound here." With that, the air erupted with a sudden wave of energy, sending shards of light erupting from the shard. It flickered to life, illuminating the room in dizzying patterns. Faces emerged and faded, whispers turning into screams. The man recoiled, his anger boiling over. "No!" He lunged forward, reaching out for me, but the light struck him, halting his advance. "Stay away," I cried, pushing the shard toward him. It responded to my fear, flashing brighter, creating a barrier between us. The chaotic swirl of figures whispered words I couldn't decipher, merging into a chorus of anguish, and with each pulse, I felt the reality around us shift. Focus on her, they urged, their voices losing form. It was Eliza, a memory of her that I needed to uncover. Tell me who you are, I shouted, channeling every ounce of clarity I could muster. What happened to you? Her voice broke through the hysteria, rising above the din. I was betrayed. They took me, I only wanted peace. With a burst of understanding, I felt their pain real and raw. I will find you, I called out into the chaos. Find Eliza. The shadows echoed, resonating with her name. I turned to Eliza, determination surging through me. I promise, I'll uncover the truth. Just then, I felt a pull beneath my feet, a slow merging of shadows. Threatened to swallow me whole. You need to leave now, the dark man spat, realizing the tide was turning. Eliza's bonds disintegrated as the shards of light intertwined with her form. Go. I'll hold them. Don't think, I chanted, clenching the shard tightly, sensing the fabric of this place shift. I dashed toward the entrance, feeling the wind whip around me as darkness slowly began to unravel. As I approached the doorway, I glanced back at Eliza one last time, her figure blurring into the light while the man's silhouette screamed in fury. You can't escape this. Without looking back, I leaped through the door. A wild surge of energy enveloped me, whisking me away from the cottage and into the woods, where trees twisted and parted. The shadows closed in behind me, leaving only a whisper. Help us! I found myself tumbling out into the moonlit night, breathless and shaken. The light from the shard faded, but I was alive. I stumbled to my feet, adrenaline coursing through me as I turned to walk away from the mill, the weight of uncertainty still sitting heavy in my chest. I made it out of the woods. I drove without looking back, my heart beating in rhythm with the chaos that had once overwhelmed me. The neighborhood felt like a distant memory now, a haunting question lingering in the back of my mind. I still think about Eliza sometimes, what truly happened to her, and how deep the shadows ran in that forgotten neighborhood. The whispers never left me, every once in a while creeping back late at night, mingling with the silence of my new life. I can't help but wonder if the mill still stands, if the darkness still lurks, and if Eliza ever found peace. I know the truth is out there, but sometimes the price of discovery feels too high, and I can't shake the unnerving belief that something is still waiting for me to return.